Welcome back to the Raleigh Oaks Baseball Club here on OOTP 25. It has been a bit for me. You may have noticed that we've missed a couple days here with the posting, here with the uploading. That is because it's just straight up I fell behind. I fell behind on my recording. Did not have recordings to edit, did not have time to do the recordings. So now we're getting caught up here, and it's been a while since I've recorded this. So we're jumping straight into this. I have no notes about where we left off. We're just going straight in and doing this off season, gearing up for 2042. One thing I will mention before we actually do dive into doing the rest of this off season is that I do not know how long this is going to go on for, how much longer. I don't want to just abruptly end it, but I also don't want to just do I'm not planning on posting this series until the next OOTP game comes out. Not really something I'm trying to do. I'm human. There's a reason why I disappear usually when I was doing MLB The Show. There are multiple reasons, but one of them is that generally once you get into the winter, baseball mode kind of takes a back seat. I love baseball. It's my number one sport. That's what I played growing up. But it takes a back seat when you get into these months where it should be cold, but it's still 85 because reasons we all know. So, World Series is over. It's not baseball mode in my brain anymore. Even during the playoffs, really. It's not baseball mode in my brain. It is football mode, it is hockey mode. It is even soccer mode these days. So basically, I don't want to disappear for the whole winter. I'm not trying to do that. I'm not just trying to not post for 4 months and all of a sudden, hey, it's April, I'm back. But I also don't want to keep posting this through that whole time period, through the whole winter. So we're not going to end this it's not like we're doing one more season and then it's over, but, we're not going to be doing this for 10 seasons of Raleigh Oaks, I don't think. It's basically right now just coming down to deciding what I want to do actually post when I'm not doing this. I've had a couple ideas. The main one is possibly dabbling in some Football Manager. Possibly, because that new game doesn't actually come out until OTP, the next one comes out. So it's football mode or soccer mode. It's, I'm soccer pilled. I'm very soccer pilled. I just say nil all the time now. I'm totally soccer pilled on the promotion relegation system. I think it's insanely cool. The entire Champions League whole thing, the European competition, it's everything about it. The whole system is fantastic to me. I love it. I've been enjoying Football Manager so much. So I might dabble in a possible Football Manager series, and I don't know, maybe it might be interesting because I'm not as knowledgeable about soccer as I am with baseball, just based on the fact that I really haven't understood the intricacies of the game until recently. Whereas with baseball, obviously, I've grown up playing it and total nerd about it. The original plan was for NCAA football to fill the gap of the next OTP game, but as some people may have noticed, the New Mexico series has been not getting posted, and that's simply because that game sucks. I can't. It's worse than LB The Show for me at this point. I just can't play that game. It's bad. It's gotten even worse through the updates they've put out, which is just, I don't know how you managed to do that. It was already in a shit state, and then they've made it worse through the updates. It's just not a good thing. Somehow they have backed themselves into a corner to where Madden is actually in a better spot than NCAA football is or college football is right now. Because I'm not sure if people have realized this yet, but sports games as a whole right now, kind of not in a good spot. All right, so taking a look at what the roster is right now, the pitching side of things, I think we're in a very good spot. We're, once again, probably not going to be spending a ton of money in free agency. If anything, it's adding to the bullpen with possibly some 1-year deals on some solid veterans, because as we can get into here, I think we have a really deep rotation. I think we have Morales, who is a stud. We have Graham, who is a stud at the top. And then these, or maybe we could, I don't know. The thing is, we have so many good starters. We have a bunch of guys around this level, this 3 to 5. So, Hofer, who we have on league minimum, and it was good for us this season. The Rutgers man, we want him back next year. Sinkamani, gonna be in the rotation this upcoming season probably. If not him, then it's one of the other guys who we will talk about. But Sinkamani, even if he's not Sinkamani, even if he's not in the rotation, he's going to be a really good like stopper sort of guy in the bullpen. So we have him. We have Trujillo, who could be really good if this changeup develops. Right now, he's a two-pitch guy, going to limit him to bullpen time if he remains a two-pitch guy. Honestly, he might even be somebody we possibly look to trade simply because the changeup's not developing. He hasn't really been lights out at any level in the minor leagues because the changeup's not developing. He's also fragile. So, I mean, if we do make a swing, if we make a big trade, it's probably going to be centered around Trujillo, strengthening other parts of the roster because we have a lot of starting pitching, I feel like. But, famous last words, you say that, then you end up, it's August, and you're starting like a 40 overall guy in your fourth starter spot. But as of right now, I feel like we have some decent starter depth. We also have Santiago Mendoza, who could give us innings in the bullpen with his 80 grade, or innings in the rotation if we wanted him to with his 80 grade fastball. He has 55 stamina. He is a weapon for us that we could be using. I have no quarrels about using him in a stopper role, but if we need him to be in the rotation, that is an option. Then we also have Bobby Harlow, who we know about, 55 stamina. He can give you some starting innings. I don't think he's necessarily the ideal starter. He drops down to a 45. I'm not like anti-45 in the rotation, but definitely probably more of like a follower opener sort of option. Like he would be the follower, like we've been doing, rather than if we want to make the shift to having 5 actual starters, like I'm thinking we're leaning towards this season. Even somebody like Jesus Miranda could give you starting innings, especially if this sinker develops. Somebody like Josh Parton could give you some innings. The splitter is not ideal, but he's more of, once again, more of like a follower type. So, we've had some success. We've had a lot of success, I feel like, with this follower starter thing. So even if we don't have a legit, like, so one of these guys falls off or something, or we have some injuries, I feel like we've proven and we're able that we can piece it together with follower and opener situations going. And it even makes it better now that we have somebody like Jake Graham, who we're just going, hey man, go out there and throw 200 innings every year because we want to unlock that part of your game. We want to have that stability as a guy who just goes in there and eats innings and makes it to where, like, oh, Graham's pitching today? Okay, he's going 7 at least, and we're going to just absolutely feast the rest of the time out. It's going to rest the bullpen, and we're going to have everybody ready and locked to go for the other guys. But as far as the guys in this bullpen right now, like Nazario, I'm thinking he's going to be our closer next year. He's going to move into that role because Wilson Montiel is an expiring, or he's hitting arbitration, and I'm thinking that Montiel is somebody we might try to trade here this offseason. We might bring him back. We might trade him. He's not the most expensive, so we might end up bringing him back. But I think even if we do bring him back, I think I might shift Nazario to be our closer because, I mean, just look at him. He's got 80 grade stuff, 80 grade fastball, 75 grade sinker, throws 100 miles an hour. He should be the closer over Wilson Montiel. I mean, that's just logic, Montiel obviously has been the closer since we got here, but Nazario should be the closer. But if we decide to bring back Montiel, he'll still be a big part of the bullpen. I just don't think he's going to be the option in the 9th inning. As far as the rest of the guys we have, Juan Jaimez will be back. He's turned into a pretty solid left-handed arm for us. Going to be making less than $1 million this year. He has no options, but still very valuable, still only 26. Alexis Sardina is a 50 overall guy. Decent ratings across the board. He's another guy who can give you some starting innings as well. But I'm probably looking more of him as a reliever, as a left-hander. We've talked about Bobby Harlow. Jeremy Hebert. I feel like with a name like Hebert, your name should be Jeremy, like it needs the accents over the E, like it's like everybody in France has. Or that guy on Man City, who I don't remember his last name. At least he's in Man City in FM24. Don't come for me if he's transferred since then. Hand up, I don't know. But yeah, anyways, he's going to be a part of our bullpen here. He's only 23, making league minimum. And then these other guys are guys who we think are more so depth options, but they could be in the big league rotation. Josh Parton, he's interesting. The thing is, he has no options though, so he might be somebody we try to move on from because he's 28, he's got no options. He is making league minimum, but at the end of the day, we have some better options who are more flexible than Josh Parton is. And then Jesus Miranda is a lefty who throws hard, extreme ground ball, gives us big stamina as well. And yeah, he's going to be a part of our bullpen too. He has one more year of options though, so he is more flexible than Parton is. And then the rest of these guys are guys that we are going to be moving on from. So Montiel's probably the biggest one that we might bring back. Bethancourt, or Betancourt, I always call him Bethancourt because I think it's a TH. It's Betancourt. He maybe we bring back, but I just don't really think it's necessary. Like he's arbitration eligible. If we just go to like offer a contract extension, like I mean we could give him $2 million. Like we've got a bunch of money to spend, but you know I feel like we get his value for somebody else. But I don't know. Maybe bring him back. Maybe we don't. So basically, Betancourt and Montiel are the guys that we might bring back because they were good and they're not going to be too expensive. I don't feel like. Whereas Sincere Mikel, the Wolf, there's no way we're going to be able to bring him back as he's an expiring free agent and he's going to want some serious change. And he's in his 30s. These are the types of guys we acquire at the deadline and not sign for multiple seasons. Andre Zamora, same deal with him. He's had a taste of the money. There's no way he's going to be wanting some cheap ass deal. Elmer Corkum is an expiring starter who we picked up at the deadline from the D-backs. He was good for us in 13 starts and had a couple good postseason starts. He also is going to want some pretty pennies here. Not going to be re-signing him, age 30, almost 31. So he's gone. Dave Havens has been a part of our pen, has given us some stopper-follower action as well. Or, I think some both. Some stopper-follower action as well. He was not good this year. He was good he was good in 2040. He was not good this year. He does have an option, but he's arbitration eligible, and he's probably going to want, like 1.3 is the estimate. I mean, we could bring him back, but I think we have plenty of guys who can give us this sort of bulk. But I don't know. Maybe bring him back. Maybe we don't. The fact that he has an option makes me think that maybe we will add him to the mix with Montiel and Betancourt for guys that we might bring back for next year's bullpen. And then Alfredo or Kalana Jackson, the opener guy or the follower guy. Oh, no, he was not a follower. He was an opener. Yeah, the opener extraordinaire. He's been okay, but I don't think he's out of options. He's hitting arbitration. He's almost 29. We're going to move on from him. We're not going to bring him back. We're not adding him to the list of guys that we might bring back. And then Alfredo Cornejo, he is somebody who, with Cornejo, he's not arbitration eligible. We should just add him to like this group here, where it's like guys who could be a part of the bullpen, but probably are more so depth options. Cornejo throws hard, has big stuff, fastball cutter combo, lefty, not super expensive. He's on an auto renew at $1 million. Has never really shown out in the big leagues yet. He's gotten 43 innings last year, was not good. This year he got 6 innings, was lucky. And, I mean, he was giving up a ton of home runs. You know, he still has an option, so that's why we're leaning towards bringing him back. I don't want to just... But like, if we do have to DFA somebody at some point, this is option numero uno here. I should also mention that we have some names down in the minor leagues when it comes to pitching. Somebody like Chris Bowman is a depth option for us here, former 8th round pick in 2035. Unfortunately, Chris Moore, who's this like possibly could have been a starter, now so more going to be just like a really wild reliever with insane stuff, tore his flexor tendon. He's going to be out for quite a long time. So hopefully this doesn't go down too much when he comes back, but he's definitely somebody we are hoping is part of our like bullpen here next season. I mean, I think he'll probably come back like mid next season, late next season, somewhere around there. So we'll have to see how he does. But I it's a bummer that he got hurt, but it's pitching. What can you expect? But the real prize of our pitching staff, our pitching prospects right now, is Tariq Bin-Aboud. He was the 2nd overall pick the year before we took over, I believe, or maybe 2 years before we took over. He was in Double-A for us last year, shoving. 3.5 WAR, 139 ERA plus, 83 FIP minus. He had a 19.7 K minus 9, struck out a bunch of guys, didn't walk too many guys, limited home runs pretty decently well, and a 2 win probability added. Really good stamina. Looks like he's going to have a really good pitch mix. It's already 350 plus above pitches. We would like to see this control develop, but 45 is nothing too crazy. We would like to see the control and the stuff develop. Hopefully it continues to do so, because this guy looks like he could be absolutely insane. And then the other one to mention is that Jorge Lozano, he got hurt at the start of this season, and then he had a setback recently. Now I'm remembering. He suffered a setback from his injury, which required another surgery. So yeah, at the beginning of the season, he tore his rotator cuff, was going to miss the whole year, and then in July, he suffered a setback, 15 months. So Jorge Lozano, he gave us that really good 2040. His career might be cooked. Might be cooked, folks. But then we also have Daniel Cardoza, who also got hurt for us. He was somebody we brought up from Tampa Bay last offseason. He has no options and is expensive, so we are not going to be bringing him back either. And then when it comes to the bats, this is where I feel like we really don't have to add too much, but we do still want to add something. I think we are going to add a bat we can have in this DH spot, either in this DH spot or push one of these guys into the DH spot where he would take over. So I think I'm more so leading a bat. We want a guy who can go in there and just be like a serious middle-of-the-order bat in this DH spot, who maybe could give us some flexibility in other positions, but he's mainly on the team for his bat and free agency. We'll have to see who's there, but that's probably the one thing that we are looking to spend money on that's not like a $2 million signing. As far as who we're looking at for the team in place right now, Aiden McCarthy, as much as his bat has been disappointing, his glove is really good. He throws at runners. You do not steal on Aiden McCarthy. That's a saying for a reason. He's damn good. He's going to be back as the starting catcher next year, I feel like. Unless we can get somebody insane. Like maybe there's an insane catcher in free agency. Who knows? But McCarthy, I have no quarrels about him starting as our catcher next season. Juan Ramirez is obviously going to be our first baseman. Ortega, very disappointing how he's turned out with his regression, but he's our option. We signed him long-term. He's our second baseman. Olejar is our third baseman. Rubin's our shortstop. Griego is our left fielder. Cooperman's going to be our center fielder. Nesty Rojas, coming back from his injury, is going to be our right fielder. Hopefully he can put up a more so like this season as opposed to this season. And DH is going to be whoever gets that signing spot, while Chris Henniger is going to be our main backup outfielder as a switch hitter who showed out this season. Decent player for us, could start on many teams. He's going to be a really solid fourth outfielder, can play all three spots as well as some first base. Really good personality class, really good speed, quality player to have on your bench. Alfredo Medina is definitely the odd man looking in, I would say, because for whatever reason, he's just not able to play defensively, and he was not good offensively this season in a pretty good sample size. 490 plate appearances is nothing to shake your head at. That's a good sample size, and he just flat out sucked. So he is somebody who is fallen behind Chris Henniger, and he also is somebody who probably we're going to keep because he has an option, and he's making league minimum, but if we find something where like Medina could like push a trade to go through, I would not be opposed to doing that, especially because we have a few interesting outfield prospects right now who are all Rule 5 eligible, so they'll have to get added to the 40-man if we want to keep them. One of them, Mike James. He's Mike James, the one and only. You can't clone him. I mean, this guy looks like he could be a really solid player in the corners and at first base. Center field, not so much, but he does have 60 range, good speed, decent enough bat. Former 14th round pick, was an A-ball last year, doing really damn well. He's going to be in Double-A to start this season, but he could very well push his way up to the big leagues at some point. We also have Jesus Pineda, who is an interesting option as well, can also play all three spots and first base. Decent 65 range, 65 error, 60 arm, really good speed profile, really good power bat profile if this develops. Righty-lefty guy, that's very rare. He was in Double A last year. Wasn't the greatest season for him, but he was still serviceable enough, and he's developing. We're excited to have this guy as a part of our system. We also have Luis Carriaga from the Dominican Republic. He's a right-handed hitter. Also has some interesting power potential. This can develop with some speed. Definitely more of a corner first base guy, but, you know, an option to have that's younger than Medina and somebody who having a bunch of guys. He's also a captain, personality class. So having a bunch of guys like this makes it easier to move off Medina. He was in high A last year, did pretty damn well, 20 doubles, 19 home runs. We also have Ezekiel Ramos, who was in AAA for us last season, or mainly in AA, ended in AAA, 115 WRC plus, 25 doubles, 20 home runs. Solid year, 11 walk percentage. This guy's bat is very intriguing. Another guy who plays the corners very well and plays first base. And then we've even got, like, just to throw in here, an infielder. Another infielder coming up. He was in high A for us last year, doing pretty well, mainly with the glove, not so much the bat, but his glove is definitely the thing that is going to carry him. Really good personality class. The bat could definitely be decent, especially if all this stuff develops along with this power. That could be something that is interesting. I don't think he's ever going to be a starter type guy, but definitely a very interesting main infield backup guy for you if he can develop. And then just a quick look at the salary arbitration screen. We've talked about all three of these guys. If any of them come back, no, never mind. These guys are all gone. None of these guys are coming back. We're not going to be giving our $1 million backup catcher a QO. That's obvious. Amari Collar did pretty decently for us last year at times. Had been really good in the minor leagues for us the previous season. You know, it's a cool story, but we're not going to bring him back at $2 million. It's just not happening. Bethancourt, I said maybe. Cardozo's a no. Havens is a maybe. Jackson is a no. Montiel is a maybe. Steve Hagge is a no. Jared Hartley's a no. And Chris Risher is also a no. So those are the guys who we will bring back or not, or maybe, possibly. And I've already gone through and offered the minor league guys that I want to bring back extensions. Minor league extensions, we'll see if we accept them as we continue to move along with this offseason. And how could I possibly forget we also have to replace our manager? Because our manager was starting to get a bit too big for his britches and was starting to be like, actually, I should control this. And I'm like, actually, you shouldn't. And the thing is, we're not going to promote any of these guys. You know, that might be the smart thing to do. But I have had it before where you look at a guy like this and you're like, wow, this guy could be really good for us. He's the obvious guy. It's like, hey, we have this AAA manager who's in place. He's been here forever. He's winning playoff rounds. He's winning a ton of games in the minor leagues. Let's get him a chance in the major leagues. But because the fact that his reputation is excellent, this all is green right now, but I've had this before where you promote a guy like this, and suddenly 90% of this is red, and this guy thinks that he should be managing everything. So we are not going to do that. Instead, we're going to go out and try to find a guy to fill this spot, as well as our first base coach spot. And then the only other openings we have are our pitching and hitting coach in the Dominican Rookie League. Like, here's another example of that. Bennett Sousa, who I recognize because we had him with Rocket City in Los Angeles with the Angels for a long time. And he was just constantly there making the playoffs. And apparently they let him go. And he's just out here. Now he has a bunch of yellow on here. So we are not going to be doing anything that we're not going to be signing him because he has yellow on his profile. So basically what we're looking for is a guy who has good relations with our players, is not like the worst at like handling veterans and like mechanic changes and stuff like that. And has like unproven reputation, so we can just be like, hey, we can mold this guy into something. And I would say young is probably a preference as well. I don't really want to go out and sign a 65-year-old and have him retire after 2 seasons, and then we're just back to being finding a good guy. So like, boom, here we go. We've got this is the bunch of 40-year-olds who have good relations. We have this guy who's QC, but he's like the worst manager of all time. Literally, he's not good at anything. Not a single thing he's good at. Also, our cohesion is currently ecstatic. So, like, bringing in, like, 1 or 2 guys that have, like, struggles with isn't going to be the biggest deal, but I would say that works well with personable or normal. If we could bring in a guy with personal or normal personality, that would be the ideal outcome here. And if our first base coach could teach catchers very well, that would be cool too. So yeah, Mr. Quebecois here, 100% not getting the job because I don't actually know if any of this affects if you're if like a CPU manager, because all this guy's here for is relations. Like I don't know if this affects anything. I think it does, but we're not going to take the chance of hiring a guy who has 3 pours. This guy has fair, and poor. So clearly, the obvious choice here is Vladimir De La Rosa. The best name here too. He's sabermetric. He has really good stuff and a lot of stuff. I don't know if this matters for coaches, but he's got good development, good mechanics, good handle veterans. So Vladimir De La Rosa, bunch of green here on his attributes. That is who we are going to be hiring, the 40-year-old Dominican, as our manager. Also, I totally forgot to look at his personality class, but it is indeed personable. So that is fantastic. He's perfect. He's the perfect option. Alrighty, so I was a big dummy, and I forgot to do the player dev lab before I advanced today, so we're going to get screwed out of doing a second round of usual defensive things that I do, but it's whatever. Here are the guys that we chose for the development lab this time around. Tariq Bin Aboud, he is going to be in for improving control. We just want to tap into the 65 control if we can. Pretty self-explanatory. Mike Sinkamani, we are trying to improve his pitch arsenal, possibly get this curveball improved. That would be fantastic. We would love that. Jeremy Hebert, which I'm going to be calling him from now on. Secondary pitch improvement, very self-explanatory. We want this curveball to be just as good as his fastball. We don't want it to be a 45 pitch. We do not want a single pitch fastball reliever. And I think he has the personality class to definitely play a part in hopefully getting a big bump. Juan Nazario, strength and conditioning. We want him to be our long-term closer. He's fragile. We would like him not to be fragile. Then we have Santiago Tapia. We are trying to improve his quality of contact because I already feel like his power and gap power is good. If we can get this BABIP to maybe even get a potential boost, that would be fantastic. Honestly, now that I'm looking at this guy again, what we're actually going to do is we're going to say, hey, Tapia, don't do that. And instead, go back to the active roster here. And Tapia instead is going to do 2-strike approach. So Tapia is going to try to improve this avoid K, see if we can get that up since his eye is already not great. See if we can get the avoid K to pair with this power and get a little unicorn type of a player here who hits for power and doesn't strike out, because he did strike out a decent amount of time for a guy this season for a power hitter. Or not for a power, but just decent, strikeout percentage. We would like that to come down a bit if we could. Then we also threw Yaikel Cooperman for generate bat speed. We want to see if we can turn him into a bit more of a power hitter. We love everything else about his profile. We love the defense. We love the speed. We love the contact. We love the gap power. If he could just get the power up a bit, he'd be fantastic. Then we threw in 2 prospects, who is Mike James, in for quality of contact, because that's just the one that has this huge gap between his current and his potential. Tap into that, young man. We want to see that tapped into. So we're going to try to go for that. And then Jesus Pineda, 2-strike approach, just like Tapia. Once again, his power, we could have went for power, but I wanted to see if we could get power to develop on its own, and then see if we could get more of this avoid K to go up, because we want him to be a power hitter who doesn't strike out like Chris Lesnar rates, because I don't think his power is good enough to counteract the fact that he is going to strike out a shit ton. He hasn't had the worst strikeout percentages, at least last year, but if we could improve it, we will try to do that. Also, just realizing he's 6'8", which means literally nothing in game, but very cool to look at. So I'm taking a look at the salary page here, and I happen to notice that Aiden McCarthy only has 1 more year at league minimum at $740,000, and then he's going to shoot up to 4.6, 9, 12, 14.5 through arbitration. If he has a good year this year, this could go up. So Aiden McCarthy, we're not going to be wanting to pay a defense first catcher or that type of change. So I'm thinking that if we can find a better option at catcher, we're going to do that. If we're going to go out, if we go out into free agency and there's just an absolute stud, 29-year-old, 30-year-old catcher, we're going to be in on the bidding on that guy, because if we're going to pay a catcher, I want to pay a stud, and I don't want to pay Aiden McCarthy. We are now going to be checking back in with the league news section because the awards have been given out. The National League MVP this season was Eddie Shell of the Tampa Bay Rays. He gets the 2041 MVP. The man out of Boston went to St. Joe's in Philadelphia, former 7th round pick. Looks to be a pretty insane hitter. Put up a 7.5 WAR in his first big league season, so he probably won Rookie of the Year and MVP in the National League here for the Rays. Luis Griego finished top 3. Former Angel farmhand Kane Archdeacon finishes 4th with the Atlanta Braves. And then way down here on the bottom of the list, Juan Ramirez got 1 single vote. Where in the American League, the winner was Juan Morales of the New York Yankees, their shortstop. Once again, another guy who the CPU keeps down in the minor leagues for way too long, comes up, make his debut at 25 when he's a guaranteed superstar, and he just hits 45 home runs into the short porch, I'd imagine, with 70 power and 75 range at shortstop. Pretty insane player. 8.2 WAR for the Bronx Bombers. And then the runner-up was Chris Aquino. Our man Chris Aquino put together a full season, 162 WRC plus, led the American League, had the leading OBP slugging and OPS as well, 24 swipe bags, 36 home runs. He's been a stud. He's 31 now. He's got 318 career home runs, 215 doubles, got a career 39.9 WAR. Chris Aquino is he's pretty damn good. And then in the National League, the Cy Young Award went to Alvaro Carcamo. The Miami Marlins pitching machine is back in action. They just get this guy, international free agent signing. They develop him, and I mean, look at this. The Miami Marlins just churn out these guys in this universe for whatever reason. And this is another one in a long line, so we might be in for a rough run here for the Marlins in our division when they're getting guys like this to the big leagues. And then in the American League side of things, the Cy Young winner was Tommy Lawing of the New York Mets. We've gone up against him in the playoffs before. Jesus Ramirez in this mix as well. And then Kurt House from the Los Angeles Angels getting some votes as well. Also, this is the first time I've realized this because the National League Manager of the Year was Brad Nelson of the Atlanta Braves. And you may be saying, that name sounds familiar. And that's because Brad Nelson was the manager of the Los Angeles Angels for the 2027 World Series run. We let him go to hire, I forget his name. We hired somebody after him. And he went on to Baltimore. Didn't really do too well there. Got fired. Then he's with Atlanta. And they've been really good. He's made the playoffs 4 straight years. Manager of the Year here now. He's qualified for it 5 times. He's won it twice, both with Atlanta. So I think it's funny that the Braves, who have a lot of former Angels players, also have the former Angels manager. And Eddie Shell did indeed win Rookie of the Year and MVP. I've never seen a name listed like this before. This guy's name is James Jimmy Bauer. Is this like a new way to show nicknames or something? Like his James Jimmy Bauer. Like, we could just guess he's called Jimmy because his name is James. Why does this have to be there? But then some of the more minor awards, we did indeed have a Silver Slugger this season. Left fielder Luis Griego gets the Silver Slugger with a 7.6 WAR season. And then the National League Gold Gloves, here we go. Juan Ramirez gets the Gold Glove at first base. And then the reliever of the year went to Jake Van Orden of the Atlanta Braves, but Santiago Mendoza and Wilson Montiel both got votes in the 3rd and 4th spot. And classic, we get the free agency, and it's just a really weak position player class. These are the best batters available in free agency. It's a normal durable guy, which is definitely different, but the best catcher available is Billy Noble, who is last year's backup catcher, and now wants a pay raise at $6 million. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to get Aiden McCarthy's backup here, or Agent McCarthy's replacement here as the in free agency. Now, I will say, if you look at upcoming free agents, there are some interesting catchers here. There's, out of Baltimore, Ben Olroge, something like that, who is an expiring free agent after the next season. We might try to possibly even trade for this guy. Perhaps. What was Baltimore this year? What did they do? Baltimore, they made the playoffs, but they snuck in. Have they been on like the upswing? Like, are they on the downswing or are they on the upswing here? Okay. Like, I guess they're in like this 80 win range, but like they're not. It doesn't look like they're a team that's like, ready to like take the next step to be like a legit playoff contender. So I would imagine they're probably not re-signing. What is their finances like? Okay. They have a decent amount of money. They could probably extend him. What does their minor league system look like? They have the 14th minor league system, so it's not like they have like a bunch of guys who are like primed to just immediately come up and like make them contenders. So we might possibly try to trade for this guy, Ben Olrogi. I would not be opposed. I mean, he's a ground ball hitter. That's kind of not great. He's gonna want a shit ton of money. There's also Pero Fruga here, who is definitely more of a defensive catcher, but he has a decent enough bat. Like, he'll give you some home runs. But yeah, no, I don't think we want to trade for this guy. I think if we traded for a catcher, we would want to trade for this guy. For sure. Even though he is a ground ball hitter, I feel like he's got the ratings to counteract that a bit. He does have 60 power, so you would think he would hit more than like 19, 26 home runs, but we might look into trading for this guy. If we look at the other catchers, there's also Doug Sauls out of New York. Yeah, he's just straight defense. We don't want that. As far as the rest of these guys go, I did say we were looking to possibly bring in a bat. This guy is outspoken, which we do not love at all. But I did say we were looking to bring in a bat who could help us in that DH spot or push somebody else somewhere else. This guy would probably be the DH for us, give us a little bit of versatility through the infield, though. Has a really good speed profile, or stolen base profile, I should say. He could be an option. He could be an option for us. The thing is, we don't have a ton of money to be giving, like, Gusty and also trying to trade for the other guy with the intention of extending him, because that's what we would want to do. We would want to be extending that guy, but I don't think we don't have the facilities here in Raleigh to be giving out top free agent money back-to-back seasons, especially after we already just signed Jake Graham to like a $40 million per year deal. And some of these other guys just really don't stand out to me. I think we'd prefer to go after the catcher, because I just don't think we're gonna be able to make this guy and the catcher happen. Pat Taft isn't really gonna move the needle. He's also 33. This guy's wrecked. Jamie Holly is defense. Billy Noble is defense. Edgar Ramos has a little bit of pop. I mean, this guy could be an interesting, like, 2-3 year deal to be like a DH for us. I wouldn't mind Ramos. Jimmy Waters is wrecked. Asare is fragile and also not really that impressive. Velasquez. This was the guy we traded for with LA when we won the World Series. He's okay, but I don't think he's like a dude we're looking to like get as like our DH. Even Ramos here, not exactly the most intriguing. He's had a weird career. He had like some really solid years in New York, and then I guess maybe he got hurt or something these years, and then he went to Minnesota, and he's just not the same guy. He is hitting home runs, but he's not the same like 4 WAR level 130 WRC plus, 120 WRC plus sort of player. If you look at his injury history, I mean, what were those years he missed a ton? He missed 2039, he barely played. Everything else, so 2039, he only played 64 total games. He had an oblique strain for 6 weeks, but that I don't know. That seems weird that he would have maybe he just had a weird Edgar Ortega thing where he just fell off a cliff. But he's probably the best bat here aside from Rocky, who we want to go here for. And I just don't think we want to bring in an outspoken, almost 30-year-old on like a $35 million deal to be to be our DH. I don't think this is happening. I just don't think they're wanting to trade him. We've offered them everything. We've offered them all three of these guys with 80, 75, and 70 potential. I'm currently offering them. I was like, okay, maybe these guys are too far away from the major leagues. So maybe they prefer some more developed guys. So we're offering them Trujillo and Bin Abdud, and they won't even have an email back. They're just immediately like, "Fuck you, buddy." So we're not going to be trading for this guy, but we are going to throw him on the keep an eye list because we want to keep an eye on him if he becomes available next season. And I still don't think that we want to sign Rocky Gusty to a long-term deal. If we can convince him to be like, hey, sign a 3-year deal, I wouldn't be opposed to that. 3-year deal with a vesting option of, I don't know. Did not mean to do that. No, we'll just do team option. Team option, and say let's drop this down to just like 32 million. That's the plus button. 32 million. Use for all. See what you think. Okay, so we did talk about a 4 years, which I don't particularly mind. What if we go 4 years team option? We drop this all down to 32.5. Okay. I don't want to give you another player options. We'll give you team option, and I'll say this is 31.5. This is 34.5. Jesus Christ, man. Okay, what about this? What about this? We drop it down to 3 years. That third year is a team option. And then I give you 35, 35, 32. Fuck you, buddy. All right. I'm not giving you player options. It's just not happening. We give you 35.5. And then we give you 33.5. And then we drop this down to 32.5. You bastard. We'll keep the player option, but what we'll do is we'll give you 35.5, and then we'll drop this down to 30 flat, and then we'll do the player option is just straight up like 26.5. Like it's so much lower that you're like, oh, I'm definitely going to opt out of that and get more money. And then we'll also just give you a no trade clause just to be like, hey, buddy, we don't give a shit. And then if you win MVP, I'll pay you $2 million if you win MVP. We've never had a fucking MVP. I'll give you $2 million if you win MVP. We'll do that. We will absolutely do that. We're gonna offer Rocky Gusty this contract. 35.5 for 2 years. Then it drops down to 30 for guaranteed 32 season, age 32 season. Then age 33 season is a player option, but his money drops down so low that he might just opt out anyways. And even if he doesn't, he should still be a quality player at age 33. I think we're going to be doing this. So yeah, Rocky Gusty, please sign with us. Now, we offer that, but I'm sure some other team is going to come in and be like, we're going to give him 8 years and the moon. And we're just going to immediately have to back out. We're still in the midst of the free agency period here. Not really anything has happened, but I just wanted to cut in real quick and just show this email we just got about our scout. Got one of those scouting discoveries. This guy's insane. He's never actually going to be good, but he's 6'8", And he is from a country that I have never seen get scouted in this game. What? He's from Saint Denis, Réunion. I'm assuming is how you say that. Réunion, some shit like that. No chance this guy's ever good, but I mean, I've just never seen that. There are, let's see, all players. He is the only player in the entire database right now from this country. Are there any coaches? No. They're the only anything in this entire database from this country. I just wanted to check in real quick. We are here at the start of the preseason, so not quite here at the recap of the offseason, but I wanted to talk about this guy before any changes happen to his development so you guys can see what our one signing here in international amateurs was this season. David Porras out of Nicaragua, switch hitting, shortstop, probably more of a second baseman, third baseman type, but still really good. 80 grade power, 70 grade gap power. Looks like he could be an insane bat with like a really good second base or third base glove. Adaptability, work ethic, intelligence. I mean, this guy's the perfect player. Hopefully he develops. Alrighty, we have gotten to the end of the offseason, and we are geared up and ready to go for 2042. But as always, before we do that, we are going to go over what our team is looking like here and also everything that happened in the offseason. So just starting from the very beginning, we are aware that both our manager and our first base coach needed to be replaced. I did show that we hired Vladimir De La Rosa as our manager. He is our manager this year. He is signed through 5 years, so hopefully he doesn't start getting too big for his britches here and start locking us out of some of this stuff, but for now, we have full control over all of that stuff. And then our first base coach is now Coco Figueiredo. He was hired because he is excellent at catching defense, and that was the one thing that we needed with our staff roles. And he also has good relationships with our players. So that's pretty much what it came down to. Then we did end up re-signing the three pitchers I thought about re-signing. Dave Havens, Wilson Montiel, and Andres Betancourt were all brought back on one-year extensions. And then when we hit free agency, we didn't have too many signings, but we had one that's going to help us in the lineup, and then two that were more so low-key signings. The first one being Rocky Gusty. He is going to be our DH this season. Add a big bat to our lineup. We signed him through 2044 guaranteed at 35.5 for the first two seasons, then 30 million, and then it drops down to 26.5 for his age 33 as a player option. You know, if he accepts that, it's not the end of the world. It is much lower than the original contract, and he is still not like super old at age 33. Hopefully he's still a viable player at that point. And so far he has been a solid bat for the Chicago Cubs in this universe. As you can see here, 100-run seasons back-to-back the last 2 years, hitting anywhere from like 25 to 35 home runs. Solid player. And then the other two signings we made was we went and brought back old friend Derek Guyton to be our backup catcher. He is going to back up Aiden McCarthy because unfortunately we were not able to get a better catcher for us this season. But next off season, that is something we definitely want to do because we don't want to pay Aiden McCarthy the type of money that he's going to be getting in arbitration after this season. So Derek Guyton, for now, the backup catcher. He spent the last few years with the Angels after we picked him up in the deadline in 2039, won that World Series. 2040, he was a backup, was decent, and then last year was a backup and just struggled, hit free agency, and now the two-time world champion is a member of the Raleigh Oaks. We also brought in a relief pitcher in Caleb Stoddard. Unfortunately, he is not as good as I thought he was going to be. When we signed him, this home run average was not 45, and he looked like he was going to be a guy who was a starter that we moved to the bullpen and turned out to be way better than he was as a starter. So we signed him like a cheap 1 year, $1 million deal, and he just it does not look as good as we thought he was going to be, but currently on waivers. If he passes through, he'll be in AAA. Maybe he comes back at some point, but for now, not a part of the actual team. As you can see here, we also lost 3 players in the Rule 5. Esteban Estrella is the best of the bunch that we lost. He's just a reliever who, I guess he could give you some starting innings. He was in AAA for us the past few seasons. You could take a look here at his big leagues or his AAA stats for us. He was decent. Decent. He had the rotation year, and then he was in the bullpen last year. He was okay. He's like a depth arm starting the year hurt with the Detroit Tigers. But then we also lost Luis Olvera as a catcher. He's whatever. I wasn't really even. This guy wasn't even on my radar, so they could have him. We did also lose. Luis Carmona was selected in the Rule 5 draft by the Blue Jays, but then at the end of spring training, they gave him back to us. So fortunately, we did not lose this guy. He was somebody that I have been aware of, as he has this 80 grade fastball. You can see. We would like to see this curveball develop, but luckily, he is back in the system because I did not want to lose this. And then before we take a look at what the current roster looks like, we do have some injuries to go over, unfortunately. The 2 main ones, well, there's Jorge Lozano, of course, because he's still got 5 months left on his torn rotator cuff setback. He's cooked, pretty much. But we have Bobby Harlow, who unfortunately got shoulder inflammation in spring training. He's out for 4 months, so Bobby Harlow not going to be a part of the staff this season. And then Yaikel Cooperman tore ankle ligaments in spring training as well, so he's going to start the year on the IL. Only 2 weeks left on his, though, so he'll be back sooner than later. And for now, the lineup is going to be looking like Griego's in center field. We take a look at this. It's Ortega leading off at second, Griego in center, Rocky Gusty DHing, Juan Ramirez playing first, Eric Olejar at third, Nesty Rojas in left, Mike Rubin at short, Medina in right, and then Aiden McCarthy is catching, whereas the bench players are Chris Henniger in that outfield spot, Santiago Tapia is among the backup infielders. He could possibly push his way into the lineup if Ortega keeps struggling, but right now, he's just a very, very good backup. And then we also have Will Caffin, who had some real progress in the offseason this year. He just got a random scouting bump. You could see here his potential contact, his current power, his current eye, his potential gap, his overall and potential all went up here in February. You could see here the bat now looking suddenly pretty decent with the 75 range, can play all over the infield. He's a spark plug personality class. Very good player to have, especially as a switch hitter here on the bench for us, the Australian infielder. And then, of course, Derek Guyton is our backup catcher. So those are the 4 bench pieces for us. Whereas in the pitching rotation and the pitching bullpen, 1 through 5, we have Wilson Morales, Jake Graham, Josh Hofer, Mike Cinquemani. And then we have Tariq Bin Aboud, who is going to be as a follower, because I just think that's our best option. He's only a 40 right now. I think he's been improving. Actually, he's been dropping here to start this season. I'm hoping that he improves, because basically we want to get him innings. He pitched in Double-A last year, dominated. I think he can hold his own. We're going to start the year with him as the follower in that 5th role. If he's just dreadful, we'll send him down. But for now, we're going to keep him in that role, and the opener paired with him is going to be Juan Jaimez, who has been an opener for us in the past, while the rest of the bullpen is we have Juan Nazario, the 75 overall, 80 stuff, 80 fastball, 75 sinker man, is our closer, while these 2 stoppers, double-barreled, is Santiago Mendoza and Juan Trujillo. Unfortunately, Trujillo's changeup did not develop, and that's why we decided to go him with the bullpen and not in the rotation. Whereas the rest of the bullpen is Wilson Montiel, who is back, Jeremy Hebert, as we established, Andres Betancourt, Juan Jaimez, and Dave Havens. So that's what the staff is looking like here in 2042. And then just a quick look at the development programs. I did mention that I biffed it and just totally forgot to do the training regimens on that first day, so we were only able to get 1 set of them in. Unfortunately, not too many successes going around, but we did have a couple. Bin Abdu was not able to improve his control. Cinquemani was not able to improve his pitch arsenal, but Jeremy Hebert was able to improve his secondary pitch stuff. You can see here his potential and his current for his curveball went up. The current only went up by less than 5, though, so you can't really see it here, but it is up to 50 naturally, so now he has a pitch that's 50 or above to go with that fastball, so that is good to see. Then we had a successful program for Juan Nazario. He improved his injury proneness from very fragile to just normal fragile, which, still fragile, but definitely an improvement. No improvement for Cooperman trying to boost his power. No improvement for Mike James on his quality of contact. No improvement for Jesus Pineda on his two-strike approach. But then Santiago Tapia did improve his two-strike approach. His avoid K and potential avoid K both went up by 5. You take a look at this here. It's 45 and 50 now. Looking like a very solid player for us. And then taking a look at the preseason predictions here, the New York Mets and the Boston Red Sox both predicted to have 90-plus wins in that Metro division. The Yankees above 500 as well. And then you have the rest of the teams, whereas in the Pacific Division, you have the Dodgers and the Angels, both predicted to be very, very good teams. Angels winning 95, predicted to still be 14 games behind the Dodgers. And then you have the Mariners also up there with the rest of the teams behind them. Old friend Chris Aquino here getting respected in the top hitters now that we're not part of that organization, as well as a lot of Los Angeles Dodgers and Los Angeles Angels pitchers, a lot of LAD, and then the two LAAs, Mike Hoskins and Ernesto Pimentel, both guys who obviously we developed, drafted. Mike Hoskins has been very good in the 2 seasons since we left the Angels, and then Ernesto Pimentel also has been very good, winning the Cy Young in 2040 and then in 2041. Bit of a down year, but still very solid overall. Whereas in the National League side of things, in the Great Lakes division, the Brewers are projected to win that division, but then the Twins right behind them. Blue Jays, Cubs, Guardians, and White Sox all projected to be in the low 80 wins range, even the Tigers sort of being on the low end of their very tight division, whereas in the Southern Division, you have the Braves projected to win 100, us projected to win 92, and then you have the Marlins and the Cardinals projected to be above 500, with the rest of the teams lagging behind. Once again, another trend. Teams that we manage not getting respected in the top hitters or pitchers. None of our players are in any of these. Still, we are expecting to be a very good team this season. So, let's get into it here.